Wang Sheng pulled aside a student from the bed and sat down next to Tang San without hesitation. Tang San, you defeated me, so from now on, you're the boss of our 7th dorm. Tang San hastily waved his hand. I'm here to learn. Wang Sheng said solemnly, this is the rule. Whoever has the strongest fist is the boss. You think being the boss is easy? I won't be modest with you. Look. As he spoke, he pulled up the sleeves of his school uniform. Tang San was surprised to see 7 or 8 bruises on his arms. Wang Sheng smiled bitterly. I got these when I first arrived at the academy yesterday. We workers come from poor families, and the students from other dorms often bully us in the 7th dorm. As the dorm leader, I have to stand up for my brothers. I'm eager to pass this responsibility on to you. The other students nodded, looking at Tang San with a glimmer of hope in their eyes. Sense of justice is a basic element of chivalry. Protecting the weak is naturally part of it. Tang San received countless teachings in this regard during his time at the Tang sect. Hearing this, he no longer declined. All right then. I won't stand by while my dorm mates are bullied. At that moment, a clear voice came from outside. Is this the 7th dorm? Everyone turned to look at the door, their eyes widening. A lively girl stood at the doorway, seemingly about the same age as Tang San and almost the same height. Her pretty face was flushed like a ripe peach, inviting one to take a bite. Although her clothes were very plain, she looked neat. Her black hair was braided into a long ponytail that reached her waist. A pair of big watery eyes looked curious. She held a new set of school uniform in her hands. All the students in the dorm were boys, and seeing such a beautiful girl suddenly appear, each of them looked dumbfounded. Tang San couldn't help but ask Wang Sheng in a low voice, can boys and girls stay together here? Wang Sheng nodded, also lowering his voice, we're all just kids. The school doesn't separate dorms by gender. They say they do that at the Intermediate Soul Master Academy. It's weird. Last year, there wasn't a single worker, but this year there are 2. Boss, come on, show her who's in charge. We don't need to do that. Tang San didn't expect to become the boss of this so-called 7th dorm and immediately faced a dilemma. He couldn't bully a girl. The girl at the door blinked her big eyes and, seeing that no one paid attention to her, looked up at the dorm sign, revealing a sweet smile. Hello, I'm Xiaowu the Dancing Wu. Wang Sheng nudged Tang San's back, indicating that he shouldn't break the dorm rules. Tang San had no choice but to stand up and walk towards the girl. Hello, I'm Tang San. I'm the dorm leader here. Just call me by my name. May I ask, what's your martial spirit? Xiaowu blinked her big eyes and smiled. My martial spirit is a rabbit. A cute little white rabbit. How about you? When she smiled, 2 adorable dimples appeared on her face, which was very charming. Tang San said, then you're perfect for countering mine. My martial spirit is the food of your martial spirit. Blue silvergrass. He had never had the experience of communicating with girls before. Back at the Tang sect, he was immersed in hidden weapons every day, so he was a bit nervous now. Xiaowu chuckled and said, you're interesting. Can I come in? Well, it's like this. In our 7th dorm, there's a rule that new workers have to show their martial spirit's strength. So, I want to spar with you. Tang San comforted himself silently. Spar, not bully. Just be careful not to hurt her. It also counts as preserving the tradition of the dorm. Xiaowu looked at Tang San strangely. Are you sure? Tang San nodded. Sure. Xiaowu put her school uniform aside, her face showing some excitement. Okay then, let's do it. Before Tang San could react, her right leg had already bent up and her toe snapped out, aiming straight for Tang San's chin. Although it didn't seem very powerful, it was extremely fast, startling Tang San. He leaned to the left, avoiding the incoming kick, while his right hand grabbed Xiaowu's ankle, and his right foot habitually stepped out, his shoulder leaning towards Xiaowu's chest, a standard Iron Mountain leaning. Normally, if Xiaowu, supporting herself on one foot, were really hit by Tang San like this, she would definitely be thrown out. Of course, Tang San was very measured. He had already thought that as long as Xiaowu lost her balance, he could definitely catch her with his speed. At the same time, his lean didn't use much force. As long as it was considered a test, it would pass. The other students were all watching Tang San and Xiaowu intently. Wang Sheng watched Tang San's movements with fascination, trying hard to remember them. He found that although Tang San's movements were simple, they were very effective. However, things didn't go according to Tang San's script. Just as Tang San's right hand grabbed Xiaowu's ankle, he suddenly felt his hand slip, and the grab he was sure of missed. Then, Xiaowu's kicking leg swept across, already landing on his shoulder. Faced with Tang San's incoming right shoulder, her hands gently blocked it, and her right foot, using Tang San's shoulder as leverage, lifted up, and her other leg followed suit, climbing onto Tang San's other shoulder.
At this moment, Xiaowu's appearance seemed very strange. Her legs were wrapped around Tang San's neck, leveraging the momentum of his shoulders to lean back. With her palms on the ground, her supple legs, like springs, twisted around Tang San's neck, throwing him backward. Luckily, Xiaowu was young and wearing pants. If she had been wearing a skirt, it would have been questionable. Tang San had never fought with a girl before. When Xiaowu's first leg wrapped around his neck, he could have reacted, but as her leg lifted, her pant leg naturally slid down a bit. The leg pressed against Tang San's neck, revealing her white and tender skin, which emitted a unique smoothness typical of girls' skin, causing Tang San's emotions to fluctuate for a moment, slowing his reaction. When Xiaowu braced her hands on the ground and exerted force with both legs, Tang San couldn't resist anymore. After all, the neck is fragile, and he was just a kid. If he resisted with force, his neck could easily get hurt. So, he had no choice but to let Xiaowu throw him. Tang San noticed that Xiaowu's technique, using her legs and hands to leverage her full power, was surprisingly similar to the way his father taught him to use his legs to strike. Falling backward onto the ground, Xiaowu's strength wasn't great, and with the protection of his Xian Tiangong, Tang San wasn't injured. After throwing Tang San, Xiaowu agilely stood up on the ground, turned around, and looked at him with a half-smile. Getting up, Tang San wasn't like Wang Xing. Losing was losing, and carelessness wasn't an excuse. He knew that when Xiaowu threw him, she had held back. Otherwise, her legs wrapped around his neck wouldn't have been just for throwing him. Tang San encountered this technique for the first time. In his memory, there didn't seem to be a similar technique in the martial arts of his previous world. However, this technique was also very dangerous. If he had reacted a little faster, attacking Xiaowu's body at such close range wouldn't have been difficult. I lost. Can you tell me what technique you just used? Tang San's face turned slightly red. He thought to himself that he was probably the person who held the position of dorm boss for the shortest time in the 7th dorm. Xiaowu smiled and said, "I call this technique flexibility skill. It uses the body's flexibility and resilience to execute." At this moment, the dormitory students who had been watching were all dumbfounded, especially Wang Sheng. Tang San's defeat of him had already left him somewhat incredulous, and now Tang San was defeated by this beautiful girl in front of him, widening his eyes. He thought to himself, why are the workers who came this year all so powerful? Tang San didn't care much about being the dorm boss. According to the dorm rules, you defeated me, so you're the dorm leader from now on, the boss of us. Xiaowu's eyes showed a trace of surprise, but she was more delighted than surprised. The boss. It sounds fun. Okay. From now on, I'll be your boss. Being a worker seems pretty good. Xiaowu chose a bed next to Tang San's and placed her luggage and uniform there. Can someone tell me about our academy? Xiaowu asked, looking at the silent crowd. At this point, the students gradually recovered from their shock. Xiaowu's graceful throw of Tang San had left them somewhat fearful. Wang Xing stood up. We workers are actually responsible for cleaning the academy. The specific work is arranged by the teacher in charge of us. The academy has 6 grades, with 1 class for each grade. Boss, you and Tang San are newcomers, so you should be first-year students. The rest of us are at least third-year students, and I'm in the 6th year this year. The academy has classes in the morning and self-cultivation in the afternoon. In the morning, there are usually 2 classes, one for cultural knowledge and one for soul skills. We workers usually have some work in the afternoon to earn some income for food. Wang Sheng briefly introduced the other students. Among the workers, he had the best innate soul power. Not only did he have a beast martial soul, but he was also the king of beasts with strong combat power. His soul power was already at level 9, and another level up would allow him to participate in soul beast hunting at graduation and earn a soul ring upgrade title. After listening to Wang Sheng, Xiaowu looked at Tang San and asked, Tang San, what level is your soul power? I felt like your strength was quite strong just now. Tang San didn't hide it. After all, his martial soul on the surface was the most worthless blue-silver grass. I have full innate soul power, so my strength is relatively strong. Full innate soul power? The students exclaimed. Wang Xing finally felt balanced. Tang San's soul power was stronger than his, so defeating him was justified. In the absence of soul rings for everyone, soul power played a decisive role. It was no wonder his strength was greater than his. Wang Sheng was confident in himself and thought to himself that when he and Tang San both got soul rings and entered the title of Soul Master, his blue-silver grass would definitely not be a match for his war tiger. Xiaowu blinked and murmured something to herself. At that moment, a teacher in his 30s walked in from outside. Are there new workers here? Step forward. Tang San and Xiaowu both stood up from their beds. The teacher had an ordinary appearance with light green hair, and he carried a quilt in his hands. Which one is Tang San? Tang San quickly stepped forward. The teacher said, I'm Mo Hen. You can call me Teacher Mo. Tang San, this is the quilt master prepared for you. Tang San took the quilt. Although it wasn't fancy, a fresh scent wafted from it, and it was all brand new. There was even a pillow. It seemed that Master had thought of everything for him.
Mac said, Tang San, you and Xiaowu are first-year work-study students. You will be responsible for cleaning the garden on the south side of the playground in the future. It will be 10 copper soul coins per day. Remember, you must clean it every day. Especially make sure to clear away any debris thoroughly. Otherwise, your wages will be deducted. If there is any slack, the academy has the right to expel you. Do you understand? Tang San and Xiaowu both nodded simultaneously, indicating they understood. Mac continued, tomorrow is the opening ceremony. The day after tomorrow, formal classes will begin. First-year students will have classes on the first floor of the teaching building. You just need to attend class on time the day after tomorrow. Starting from then, you will resume your normal work. I will conduct random inspections. All right, you can rest for now. Wang Sheng, you're the eldest here, explain the rules to them. Carrying the bedding in his arms, Tang San felt a warmth in his heart, and the somewhat stiff face of the master appeared in his mind. A bedding? That seems to be a problem, Xiaowu said blankly, looking at the bedding in Tang San's hands, her eyes showing some embarrassment. Work-study students are mostly from poor backgrounds and are more sensible than noble descendants. Several clever students immediately said, Leader, you can use my bedding first, and I'll just half cover with the quilt. Another one said, Leader, you can use my quilt. I can manage with the bedding. Looking at the beddings of these work-study students, although they couldn't be said to be very dirty, they were mostly worn out. Xiaowu frowned, Stop calling me leader, you're making me feel old. Wang Sheng said, But that's the rule. Xiaowu said, Since I'm the leader, my words should be the rules. All right, from now on you can call me Sister Xiaowu. While saying this, her gaze finally fell on the bedding in Tang San's hands. Tang San, let's discuss what to do. Tang San was stunned for a moment, understanding that Xiaowu probably had her eyes on the bedding in his hands. He wasn't a stingy person, but this bedding was just given to him by the master and he felt a bit reluctant. But Xiaowu was a girl. What do you want to discuss? Xiaowu said, your bedding is quite large and it shouldn't be a problem for 2 people to cover. How about this, let's put our beds together, then we can both use them. Share a bed? Tang San looked at Xiaowu. His mentality wasn't that of a 6-year-old, even though he and Xiaowu were still very young. But sleeping together. And men and women should not be too close, this isn't appropriate. Xiaowu snorted, what's not appropriate? I don't care, what are you afraid of? Afraid I'll rape you? Yeah. It's said that girls mature earlier than boys, but the girl in front of him is only 6. Tang San was speechless, and the other students looked at them, some with envy, some watching the show, all with smiles on their faces, but no one spoke. Come on, hurry up, bring the bed over. Aren't you supposed to be strong? Xiaowu urged impatiently. Tang San subconsciously pushed his bed to Xiaowu's bedside. Xiaowu took the bedding from him and spread it on the bed first. The bedding was for adults, indeed very large. Although it couldn't cover 2 beds completely, it could cover more than 70% of both. Xiaowu put her baggage at the seam where the 2 beds were put together. Bring your baggage over too, this will be the boundary from now on. Don't cross it or don't blame me for being rude. Watching Xiaowu set the boundary, Tang San felt relieved. He quickly nodded and brought his baggage over. Xiaowu then covered the bed with the quilt and a simple double bed was formed, of course, with a boundary line. Wangsheng said, it's time for lunch, Sister Xiaowu, Tang San, let's go together. Hearing about eating, Xiaowu immediately jumped up excitedly, you okay? What delicious food are we having? Wangsheng and the other work-study students exchanged glances and smiled bitterly. What good food can we, work-study students, eat? Just buy some cheap dishes in the cafeteria and it'll do. Tang San shook his head, you guys go ahead, I won't go. His family was so poor that Tang Hao's money was spent on alcohol. To avoid going hungry, he brought some dry food, rough bread that he made himself. It was enough to fill his stomach. He would start earning wages after starting work the day after tomorrow. Seeing the patches on Tang San's clothes, Wangsheng vaguely understood what he meant and didn't force him. Sister Xiaowu, let's go. The excitement on Xiaowu's face suddenly froze for a moment. Do we have to pay for the meal? Like those soul coins? If it weren't for her considerable strength, Wangsheng would probably scold her. Why would meals be free? Who would give free lunches? But naturally, he could also see that this new leader was probably just like Tang San, short of money. Wangsheng said generously, it's okay, how about this, your meal expenses for these 2 days will be on me. Tang San, from now on, we're dormitory buddies, let's go together. You can treat me when you have money later. Tang San hesitated slightly but agreed. He had no concept of money, and Wangsheng's straightforwardness suited him. Xiaowu immediately smiled, looking at Wangsheng with obvious flirtation. But when he thought of her martial skills, Wangsheng kept a distance from her. When she threw Tang San earlier, she had a smile on her face before striking. Who knew when she would get excited and strike him as well? Including Tang San and Xiaowu, 11 people left dormitory 7 and headed towards the cafeteria under Wangsheng's lead. The cafeteria was inside the teaching building, requiring them to cross the entire playground. At this time, the playground was already bustling. Many students wearing the school uniform were heading towards the teaching building, apparently going to have lunch. The cafeteria of the Novice Soul Master Academy was quite large, enough to accommodate more than 300 people including 6 classes and teachers. At this time, there was already a long queue outside the cafeteria. The cafeteria was divided into 2 floors, with the first floor alone having 300 seats.
Just some poor guys led by Wangsheng, huh? As soon as they entered the cafeteria, a discordant voice sounded. Tang San looked in the direction of the voice and saw a group of senior students standing on the stairs of the first and second floors, looking down at them from above. The speaker was a handsome male student who looked about 11 or 12 years old, his eyes full of disdain as he pointed towards Wangsheng. Just poor guys, always stuck on the first floor. They probably can never afford to eat on the second floor. On the way to the cafeteria, Wang Sheng had already told Xiaowu about the rules set by the leader of Dormitory 7 to stand up for the work-study students, and Xiaowu had readily agreed. Now, seeing someone provoking, she couldn't help but get angry. Who do you think you are? What's so great about the second floor? A work-study student next to Xiaowu whispered in her ear, the second floor is where you can order food separately. It's expensive, and we really can't afford it. Xiaowu's figure was similar to Tang San's. She had been blocked by Wang Sheng before, but now that she stepped out, the students on the stairs naturally saw her. The male student who spoke immediately lit up. He's such a pretty little loli. Too bad she's a work-study student. Wang Sheng, I'm going to eat now, I'll spare you this time. With that, the group followed the stairs up to the second floor. Xiaowu was about to follow, but Tang San pulled her back. Forget it, we're here to eat. Xiaowu looked at Tang San disdainfully. Are you so afraid of trouble? Tang San didn't explain, just went to the end of the line to buy food. Tang sect rule. Tang sect disciples shall not easily provoke trouble, but if provoked, they shall respond with thunder. From the perspective of an adult, the students in this academy were just children, no matter their personalities. Tang San, a transmigrator with the mindset of an adult, had no interest in competing with a 10-year-old child. However, Xiaowu's character impressed Wang Sheng even more. At that moment, Tang San saw a familiar figure and hurried over. Teacher, are you here for lunch too? It was the master. He nodded towards Tang San. Is everything sorted out? Tang San respectfully nodded. I thank you for the betting, teacher. The master patted his shoulder. Come with me to the second floor for lunch. Then I'll take you to my place to get to know your martial spirit. Tang San shook his head. No, teacher, I'll eat with my dorm mates. He never wanted to be a loner. The master didn't insist and nodded. All right, that's the right thing to do. Go ahead. Wait for me at the cafeteria entrance after eating. With that, he went upstairs. For some reason, Tang San felt that the master was a bit like his father. Although his father spoke very little and the master spoke more, they both had a special aura. Especially the master, who showed it more clearly. Even when he smiled, he seemed serious. Wang Xing came to Tang San's side. Do you know the master? Tang San nodded. He's my teacher. Wang Xing looked puzzled. Really? You worship the master as your teacher? His strength isn't that great. In our academy, the master is just a peripheral figure. It's said that he stays in the academy because he has a good relationship with the dean. To put it bluntly, he's just a freeloader. I heard that the master is almost 50 years old and hasn't reached the level of a grand soul master, with his martial spirit only at level 29. He probably won't break through for the rest of his life. Tang San raised his head, looking at Wang Xing sternly. If you don't want to spar with me again, please don't underestimate my teacher. This is the first time, and I hope it's the last. Thank you for your kind intentions, but I don't need you to treat me. With that, he turned and walked out of the cafeteria. Wang Sheng didn't expect Tang San's reaction to be so strong, and he was stunned for a while. Xiaowu and the other students didn't understand why he acted like that either. To Tang San, the saying once a teacher, always a father was not just empty words. Since he had worshipped the master as his teacher, he respected him from the bottom of his heart. If it weren't for the fact that it was Wang Xing, who had made a good impression, saying that the master was a freeloader, he probably would have acted already. Wang Xing felt a little annoyed. Weird. Is this kid crazy? Xiaowu watched Tang San's back as he left. Although he was still wearing patched clothes, he seemed a little taller without realizing it. After eating dry rations with clear water, Tang San quickly returned to the cafeteria, but this time he didn't go in. He stood quietly at the entrance, waiting. Many passing students cast curious glances at him, but he ignored them all. After waiting for about half an hour, the master finally came out of the cafeteria, accompanied by a middle-aged man about his age. The middle-aged man wore a long robe and looked a little more handsome than the master. He had a slight protrusion on his chin and a gentle smile on his face. Let's go, Xiao-san," the master greeted Tang-san, who was standing at the cafeteria door. The middle-aged man next to the master smiled. Is this your new disciple?" The master nodded. The middle-aged man patted the master's shoulder. "You're all right, good luck to you. I'll leave first." With that, he glanced at Tang-san before heading in another direction. The master's residence was a room in the corner of the top floor of the dormitory building. The room was not large, only about 30 square meters. The furnishings inside were simple, with only a bookshelf occupying both walls, filled with various books, catching Tang-san's eye. The master took out a paper package from his arms and handed it to Tang-san. "Eat first. It's the time to grow, and the food here is too poor." Tang-san hesitated for a moment, then opened the paper package. Inside, there were 2 chicken legs and a steamed bun. They were still warm. Master." All right, hurry up and eat. After you finish, I have something to tell you. We can't waste the time of youth, the master said calmly and seriously. The coarse bread itself was not easy to eat, but Tang-san had a good appetite. He quickly finished all the food the master had given him. The master poured him a glass of water and sat down at the desk. "You're 6 years old this year, with innate full spirit power and dual martial souls. Release your other martial soul for me to see." Tang-san nodded. Since the master already knew he had dual martial souls, there was nothing to hide. He raised his left hand, and a black light surged out, condensing into the small hammer once again. Due to the training during the time between leaving the academy, his physical strength had improved significantly. At this moment, he could barely hold the hammer without feeling too much pressure. Seeing the hammer in Tang-san's hand, the master suddenly stood up from his seat, his eyes showing extremely excited gaze. He stared at the hammer tightly and murmured, Tang-san, Tang-san, surnamed Tang. Well, put away your martial soul. Don't easily reveal it in front of others. Without my permission, never attach soul rings to this martial soul. Remember this." Tang-san looked at the master with some surprise. "My dad said the same to me. Why can't I attach soul rings to this martial soul?" The excitement in the master's eyes gradually faded. What does your dad do?" Tang-san replied, He's the village blacksmith." Blacksmith?" The master's gaze was somewhat strange. He sighed and shook his head. "A blacksmith, hammer, quite a match. It's not time to tell you yet. Just remember, not letting you use this martial soul and not giving it soul rings is for your future. You must remember this." With both his father and the master saying so, Tang-san's trust in the master increased a few more points. "I will." The master continued, Tomorrow is the opening ceremony, and the day after tomorrow, formal classes will begin. But for you, it's just a waste of time. The urgent matter now is to continue training your martial soul. After accepting you as my disciple in the morning, I thought about it carefully. Tomorrow morning, you will leave the academy with me. I'll take you to find a suitable soul ring to advance to the soul master level." Tang-san was overjoyed to hear this. Only after obtaining a soul ring could he confirm whether his blue-silver grass skills were restricted by the soul ring. The master's plan was exactly what he wanted. He quickly agreed. The master continued, I'll arrange everything with the academy. You don't have to worry. I'll teach you about martial souls on the way there and back. Tang-san, what do you think about your blue-silver grass martial soul? Tang-san said, Everyone says it's a waste martial soul, but I believe everything has its uses and characteristics. Even the most common blue-silver grass should be the same." The master nodded in satisfaction. Right, Every martial soul has its own characteristics. In my research, low-level martial souls make up a significant portion. I've always advocated that there are no worthless martial souls, only worthless people. Tomorrow, I'll take you to find soul rings. So now, you need to decide the direction of your martial soul's development. Tang San was stunned. The direction of martial soul development? Master, what does that mean? The master said, this needs to be explained from the classification of martial souls themselves. In general, there are only two categories of martial souls: beast martial souls and tool martial souls. Plant-type martial souls are also included in the category of tool martial souls, and both of your martial souls are considered tool martial souls. The biggest difference between tool martial souls and beast martial souls lies in their manifestation. A beast martial souls, when used, attach the power of beasts to oneself, known as possession effect. By combining the human body with the beast martial soul to enhance one's strength and achieve the purpose of integrating human and soul to launch attacks. Tool martial souls, on the other hand, are completely different. All tool martial souls act outside the body. Therefore, the auxiliary nature of tool martial souls is greater than that of beast martial souls. For example, if your martial soul is a rice plant that grows the longest sword, it can be used as food. And because it's formed by soul power, its effect will be better than ordinary rice. Tang San was surprised. Martial souls can also be eaten? The master nodded affirmatively. Food-type tool martial souls can all be eaten. Therefore, high-level food-type tool soul masters are always the most sought-after talents in the military. The food provided by a food-type tool soul master above level 30 is enough for 100 soldiers to eat, greatly reducing the consumption of military resources. Tang San said blankly, I still don't understand. The master patiently explained, the principle is actually very simple. Food is a supplement to energy for any creature. Soul power is also a form of energy. When soul power can be transformed into energy that can be absorbed by humans, then for us, it's no different from real food. Both are the energy needed by the human body. Tang San seemed to understand vaguely, but he still grasped the general idea. So, tool martial souls are mostly used for assistance, right? The master said, nothing is absolute. Some owners of tool martial souls can also become battle soul masters. For example, if your tool martial soul is a sword that can be used as a weapon, then you can also become a battle soul master. The so-called divine tool mentioned outside is actually a tool soul master who has cultivated his martial soul to its peak, and can be called a divine tool. Although there is a distinction between tool soul masters and battle soul masters, there are some similarities between the two. Every soul master has a direction of development, such as food system, reconnaissance system, combat system, healing system, control system, and so on. Now, before obtaining the soul ring, you must decide the future development direction of your martial soul. The martial soul cultivation of a soul master must proceed in a specific direction.